Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Spotlight. I am very happy to have with us an amazing author who just wrote a riveting book about Maria Callas. Please welcome from Ireland, the lovely Lyndsy Spence. And when I read your book, I just had to speak to you, and all of our friends want to hear more about this wonderful book and about yourself and what inspired you to write a book on Maria Callas.
I kept reading and reading and reading books, and I never felt like I knew her. I knew Callas the artist, but I never knew Maria the woman. And I thought, well, it'd be quite interesting to look at her story through different things that are going on today and just really reframe Maria Callas and look at her in a new light. And I was so confident I would find new information, and thank goodness I did, because that was my entire pitch. Even before I discovered it, I said, oh yeah, I'm going to find all this information. And yeah, it paid off.
Well, the wonderful thing is that you bring a lot of new information to light.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me going. I've read so many books on Maria Callas, and I said, well, is that true? And this is different information.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Exactly.
so you did her a great service. God rest her soul wherever she is in heaven. And I'm sure she's happy that you retold her story. Tell us a little bit about the research that you undertook and some things that you found that were really exciting that you wanted to share with the world.
Despise the myths about Maria Callas and the scandals, because I think as a woman, it does her a disservice. So that was my main goal of getting all of the new information. So I managed to get into about 4 new archives. Well, they're not new, but all of the papers that were donated, nobody has seen them before. They've never been published. And actually, one of the collections at Stanford, the archivist said to me, we don't know what's in these boxes, but do you want to pay and take a chance? And I said, yeah, let's go for it. And oh my goodness, there is about 30 years of correspondence between Maria and her godfather. Obviously, he knew her since childhood, right up until just before her death. Copies of medical certificates, but for her own integrity, I didn't include obviously the medical certificates, but it just helped to see what was going on and what was really going on behind all of the so-called scandals, the Rome scandal, Edinburgh, San Francisco, just to see that, it really wasn't her fault, but in a way she was gaslit by the media and her husband, but I'm sure we'll get on to that afterwards. But just to see all of the letters and the letters between Maria and her parents, especially her mother, they were quite vicious. They were in Greek, so I had to get them translated. Letters between Maria and her colleagues, her husband, just there was so much, and just to see it within its own context and to see the entire, correspondence, it really said to me as well, people have had access to certain letters in the past, but they just kept repeating what was already published and taking it out of context. So yes, my goal then, after I'd seen everything, was to say, well, let's just let Maria tell her own story, really in her own words. And I think that's why it's so different, because people tend not to believe women in general. So just to see it from her side, and people think it's a scandalous book. It's really not, but I think the truth is quite shocking in itself. So yeah, maybe they will be shocked by the new information.
The new information and the way you presented it, first of all, with integrity, which I think readers will appreciate. And most importantly, it's told in truth. In other words, you did the homework. And I would love to find out a little bit more about how were these letters compiled? Were they from one person? Were they family letters? They were given to Stanford?
There was an association in Greece. They, thank goodness, translated them for me. No, nothing was in order. So my first job was to sit down. Obviously, they had, the dates on them and where she was at the time, but just sit and put everything in order, first of all, before I could make sense of anything. So that's really how that took a long time as well.
So it's great that you found a collaborator in Greece.
Yeah.
Having pulled all of this together, how long did it take you to do all this and to cross-reference everything?
Well, really, I was sort of going in and out of her story for a long time, for years before I decided I wanted to write about her. I'm not crazy. I wouldn't make Callas my first ever book. No way. It would be my first and last book, I think. But whenever I got the letters, I spent about a year putting them together, and then COVID happened, and not that COVID was a good thing, but in a way it closed me off from other distractions. And for the entire, we were in lockdown. We've only just got out of lockdown. So for about 15 months, I was able just to devote myself to Callis. She's been my little companion during the pandemic. But yeah, it was just day and night. And I'm an insomniac. I don't sleep, which might be a good thing as well. Just to devote my entire day and night to Maria Callas. It was quite
Well,
full on.
we thank you for it, really, for all your
Yes.
hard work. So I'm going to begin. A lot of people don't really know a lot about Maria Callas, meaning she was born in Greece, but she grew up most of her up to her teenage years in Washington Heights, correct? Oh no, she
She
was
was born in New York.
born
Yes,
in New
her
York.
sister was born in Greece. Yeah, she was born in New York.
So Maria Callas was born in New York in Washington Heights, and we begin the book through the eyes of the mother.
Yes,
And that was an abusive relationship. Can you
yes.
tell us a little bit more about what those letters brought more into light?
I really did try to understand her mother's perspective. She lost a child. She was in an unhappy marriage. She came to America, couldn't speak English. They had no money, the Wall Street crash and different things happened. So I didn't go in thinking, well, her mom's a monster. But as years went on and Maria grew up, I couldn't find any justification for her mother's behavior. I just had to say she is a pretty, nasty person. And then to see her letters to Maria, it's never well done. Congratulations, you're doing so well. It's just, what can I get? Give me money. And when Maria says, but I've only just started out, I don't have a lot of money. She had debts to pay off and different things. The mom would say, well, I hope you get cancer and die. Just it, I've never experienced that with my own family, so to see that, it did shock me.
Yes.
And then in a way, I kind of got used to it. I kind of got used to her mother's behavior, and I knew what was coming then as the letters progressed. And I think in a way that's quite sad, because Maria was obviously, she knew no better. And if I was starting to get used to the mother's abuse, then what Maria went through must have been horrific, because she was put into her mother's arms, the mother didn't want her, and she was always told, you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, and she sort of regressed back to that in her letters to Maria. She knew where to hit her, where it hurt. And even in the 60s, when she's with Onassis and she's more or less untouchable in the opera world, the mom still knew where to hit her.
Do you believe that the abuse of her mother um, kept her going, though?
I think yes, and she felt like she had something to prove, and what a gift she had. She could keep going. She used to say, I can kill my enemies with my voice. But I think if you don't have that support or love or just anything from anybody who's supposed to care for you, I think that's where Maria and Callis came into the mix as well. You have two different energies sort of fighting against one another. And I think if she had only just had that love from her mother, I think she still would have been Callis, because you can't suppress that talent, but I think she would have had a nicer personal life and things might have panned out better. So yeah, I definitely think everything sort of stems back to the mother, but the father was no better either. It's not fair to say it's all the mother's fault. Her father was a trickster. She thought he loved her, and because he was so absent, he sort of grew in her imagination and in her heart. And then when she was in her 40s, she sort of discovered, well, he's worse than my mother. And she said that really hurt her more than her mother's betrayal. She knew what to expect with her mom, but with her dad, then it was a completely different thing altogether.
She had a very hard time with her family and with her sister.
Yeah.
In the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
it appeared that they were closer together, but in the end, they were estranged as well,
Yeah.
kind of, until she would, I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give it away. I want
Yes.
everyone to buy and read the book. The most important part is that you delve into her family and the dynamics of the relationship. You really bring a lot of that into light.
Yes.
What part of Maria did you discover that you had not read about?
Before I even discovered anything about her health, I used to see footage of her and think there's just something not quite right, the way she was perhaps carrying herself at a certain time. And just to read in her letters to Menengini, her husband, about her weird symptoms that would come and go, I thought there's definitely something more to this than just a hypochondriac, really, because that's what they said she was. So to discover that actually she lost her voice, well, I don't like to say she lost her voice, because you can't lose your talent. She lost command of her voice, and it was down to, you know, a neurological illness, and it wasn't understood in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. So that's not to say she would have had a better time, you know, if she got medical help. Nobody really knew how to treat her, and I just think how she must have suffered. Just to sort of, people think Onassis ruined her voice, and I think that's giving him too much credit. He was immortal. He couldn't destroy the supernatural voice of Callas. It was coming from within, and that's what surprised me more. Everything that was happening to her was coming from within, and she had no control over it.
It's quite a sad story. Her rise to fame was wonderful, although it was also controversial. Throughout her career, even she was the first soprano to become a celebrity, and the first
Yes.
soprano to be a fashion icon. She had the X factor. She had it, whether with voice or without. She had, as you wrote, a cult following, which was
Yeah.
brilliantly, you know, it was brilliant that you wrote it that way. And people saw it that way. Whoever is a Maria Callas fan has to buy this book. I don't want to give too much information. I could talk about this with you all day long.
Mind. I mean, it's been in all the newspapers at the minute. At the
I
moment,
know.
I say, well, there's no mystery left, so it doesn't
There's no
bother me.
mystery left, but we want people to read it. But what I would like to say is that she always had a hard time. There was a very short time that you could probably say, oh, she had peace during this time in her life. Um,
Yeah, but
she
I
went to
also didn't
war.
want. Yeah, I didn't want to portray her as a victim because that gets a bit boring after a while. I will say that every day she was in survival mode, and that must have taken such a toll even on her, you know, her health. She was always in survival mode. She could never really relax because she didn't know where the next attack was coming from.
And
And
that
it was
causes
usually from,
adrenal fatigue.
yeah, yeah, and stress and everything.
And her nervous system was, as you correctly discovered, her nervous system was compromised, and this is
Yes.
one of the reasons that she had a decline in the strength of her voice, the life of her voice, the life of her own life.
Yeah.
Um,
And
who do you think she loved the most?
I always felt like she loved people more than they loved her. I will say she did love Meningini at the beginning. And then obviously she discovered he had ulterior motives. She did love Onassis. People like to think that this is, you know, a great love affair, and she died because he died, and different things like that. But she actually left him. She had the strength in the end to say, right, I deserve better. And she left him. And I was so happy when she did that. And it's important for me to say that because people like to think he chucked her to the side and then got with Jackie Kennedy. That's not really true. Um, I don't know who she loved the most. She wishes to say she loved her dogs the most, so I can relate to that with my
So
animals.
get
But
out of my
yeah, I think it depends on the time and the circumstances. You know, her intentions were always very pure with people, and she wasn't using people. So I think it just depends. But yeah, she had quite an unhealthy addiction to Onassis, I will say.
So she was addicted to Onassis. She was addicted to wanting to love, I think, as well, and she wanted to be
Yeah.
liked. And
Yes.
I think she was always struggling. She was her worst enemy. Like she would always fight with herself. She was always fighting. I thought she was always in a fight. As I read the book, I was like, she's always fighting with herself and with everyone.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have that inner peace, it's impossible to really find that with other people and to be at peace. Even just, she was never at peace with herself, and that's why I hope I've given her closure, that all of these silly things can stop, and perhaps she will, you know, get the peace she deserves. I do hope that for her.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
It really, you know, that's the last book I'll ever read on Callis, and I wish I would have read it first. It's a great book. It has everything. It encompasses everything in there. You brought it full circle. You brought her to rest, and the story is told beautifully. Let's tell our audience where can they find the book? Cast a
Oh God.
Diva by Lyndsy
It
Spence.
has gone viral everywhere. You can find it everywhere. Amazon, Waterstones. I don't know if you have that in the US.
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble. Just everywhere.
Well,
Yeah.
we're very happy to have met you, and we're very happy that you came on air to talk to us about Cast a Diva, the life story of Maria Callas, as it's never been told before. We hope to hear more from you and your future projects. The Greek community thanks you for, really, um, you know, just interpreting the star that she was, and the person that she was. It will make people understand her a little bit more. She is a legend, and her voice is still heard today. And do you think there's going to be a comeback with the opera? You
I
don't know?
don't know. I'm not really into modern opera, so I can't say. But I think most people set out and Callas, they look up to Callas, and that is sort of their goal. But you know what? She's so unique, and it was such a unique period of time, the 1950s for the opera. I don't know if people can replicate that. I can't even say that. If they can copy it at all, I don't know.
You don't know. The new
Who
generation
knows? But
might hear
when
this
Callas,
word.
yeah, when Callas came along, people said, "Oh, it's the diabolical voice of Callas." They didn't like her. They had to warm up to her. So who knows? You know, it's I think it's unfair to cast people in those molds. They have to be themselves and be unique. So who knows what will happen? And who wouldn't want to be like Callas? I mean,
Of course. In closing,
yeah,
I want you to tell us if you were to describe Maria Callas, who was
yeah.
she?
I always think she was just an ordinary woman, an ordinary girl with an extraordinary talent, and really, how do you even channel that? Well, you're just born into an ordinary family, and you can do wonders with your voice, and it's all yours, and nobody has given it to you, and you worked for it. I always say Callas is such an authoritative figure, but Maria the woman is very much misunderstood, and it's really been it's my dream to make people see her for who she was. And there's nothing to be scared of. She's wonderful. She's even better than what you think she is whenever you get to know her. So that's real. That was my ambition.
Well, Lyndsy, I think it came right through. Casa Diva, ladies and gentlemen, get out there, buy it. It's everywhere, by Lyndsy Spence. Lyndsy, congratulations, and we are going to check back with you about all the other great things that you're doing.